Each week we invite a guest who is one of the spiritual teachers, an author, a musician, an artist, and these teachers, most of them have international reputations and are a tremendous gift to everyone who knows them, and it's been my privilege to get to meet these people over the last 15 or 20 years and to know them fairly well. In Japan, they have a tradition of naming their really extraordinary artisans national treasures. And so, using that theme, I called this program Treasures of Mount Shasta because that's how I feel about our guests. And so I'd like to introduce you to our guest tonight, or this afternoon, which is Amorah Quan Yin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here.
Right. Well, Amorah and I met probably 15 years ago when I first came here. I don't remember the circumstance, but there were a lot of parties in those days, so probably at one of those parties. And Amorah, you teach internationally, and you have many, many students that come here every year to study with you. But tell us a little bit of how you came to, how your spiritual journey emerged for you.
Well, it was back in 1979.
Wow.
And I had been considering myself like an atheist until that time, because at that point I was very anti-organized religion, and I felt that it had done a lot of damage. And now I do see a divine purpose for it. But during that time, I had a hypnosis session, and I came out of the hypnosis session recognizing that I had been wanting to die my whole life, and that on certain levels I had been poisoning myself, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I came out of that with the understanding that I needed to go immediately into a 2-week fast. And I knew nothing about fasting at that time. I just walked out the door and said, I deserve to be the best I can be, and I have no idea what that means, but I won't give up until I find out. And I'm going to start fasting for 2 weeks to clear the poison out of my body.
That's fantastic.
And during that 2 weeks, I had a really beautiful experience. I was driving a van full of mentally retarded adults that I was teaching during the daytime. And in that van, I looked up at the mountain, and all of a sudden, this one tree that was up on the mountain just stood out. I could see it three-dimensionally. I could see every individual leaf on the tree, and I was hit with the energy of the perfection of creation. And how if one leaf from the tree was missing, if one blade of grass was missing from the field across from me, or one grain of sand, that it wouldn't be the same. And tears started streaming down my face as I felt this incredible awakening to the perfection of creation. And that was kind of the beginning.
Well, wow, that's amazing. I've heard of people having those kind of, I don't want to say exotic, but overwhelming experiences of just the perfection and the beauty that is almost hidden from us mostly. And then all of a sudden it's like somebody pulls the screen away, and then we can really see that underlying perfection, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yes, it was.
But I remember from our talk that you said you had been kind of connected from childhood, so how did that come together?
When I was a child, I saw fairies, and I saw angels, and I'll never forget when I was just about 2 years old. My mother would come and say goodnight to me every night, and we'd do prayer, and she'd sing to me and rub my back. And that night when she came, I asked her, I said, Mommy, why is Jesus so tall that his head goes through the ceiling? And she says, what are you talking about? And I says, well, even when he's sitting on the bed behind you like he is right now, he's still so tall that his head goes through the ceiling, and I thought he was the size of regular people. And my mother immediately went into, don't ever let me hear you say anything like that again. Jesus died for our sins and all that kind of thing.
Oh,
but I just immediately went into deep compassion for her. And I began to realize that the reason that the people around me didn't talk about those things is because they had forgotten how to see it. And I immediately just started feeling so much compassion for them for not having that ability anymore.
Yeah.
And the fairies really helped me a lot. My father actually killed me when I was a year old, and I died and came back.
Wow,
and
the first near-death experience.
That was the first one. I've had 12 altogether.
12, wow.
But at that time, I had the fairies. My grandmother grew lots of flowers and had a vegetable garden. And I would go outside with my grandmother, and the fairies would actually tell me, now, when your grandmother's not looking, eat one of these flowers. And eating the live flowers and doing the flower essences at that age is what helped me heal from that trauma.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be playing some of your music a little bit later, and one of the songs on the CD was The Fairies Are Coming. And it was so delightful. It talked about, the fairies are coming, the fairies are coming. As a young child sees it and believes it, and then the teenage years when you don't believe them anymore and the world isn't quite as pretty anymore. And then you realize the fairies are here and you can believe in them again.
Right.
And the music gets lively again. It was really delightful. This is a little bit not the direction I was going to go next, but since we started talking about your music a little bit, why don't you tell us about some of your music and the books that we have here on the table, and I think you have a DVD. I know you probably have more things at home, but tell us a little bit about the different items.
Well, there's 4 DVDs that I've made, 4 CDs, excuse me, CDs. And the first one is called Nearest My Heart, and on the inside cover of that one, I actually put the message that when I teach, it's the joy and the service of my spirit. But when I do my music, that's the joy of my soul expressing itself. And that's how I feel. I started singing in public when I was 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I've had a lot of songs come through. I don't feel like I don't know how to sit down and intentionally write a song. When I write songs, I sit down with my guitar and all of a sudden the song is there, and all I do is try to write it down quick enough while it's coming through. And even some of the chords are not chords that I consciously even know a name for, but my fingers will just go somewhere on the guitar and I'll hit it, and that's the chord I need for the song.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, so I have 4 music CDs now, Nearest My Heart, All Is Well, Remember, and the newest one is the Goddess CD.
Oh, terrific. And you have a DVD. Can't remember the title of it. Here it is.
Return to Oneness.
Return to Oneness, yes. And what's that about?
Well, I did a presentation at a Wesak festival a couple of years ago. And it's talking about how we're at a time frame on the earth where we're moving back to a point where we're moving back into oneness again. And how in moving back into oneness, you have to first learn how to become one with every part of yourself, which means you have to learn to love every subpersonality, every past life, your body, every single thing about yourself. You have to learn to love it completely and unconditionally before you can even begin to think about moving back into oneness completely with all that is.
Oh, thank you. I think that's going to be helpful to me, for sure, but hopefully to everyone listening, to remember that part of achieving our goal of oneness with all that is, and with one another, we really have to love ourselves first.
Yes, every aspect of ourselves, even the most negative inner voice. All you need to do is turn your love to it, and the love starts to dissolve it a little at a time.
Yeah, I had an experience one time where I had this past life. I didn't like him. He was horrible. He was mean. He was cruel. He was awful in every way, and I was supposed to work with him. And so I asked my inner team, was there anybody willing to work with him? And my inner child came forward, takes him by the hand, and says, I will. And I was like floored. It's like, oh, this little sweet innocent. And, you know, it was a big lesson in learning to love, that you can find the love within yourself to love even the parts you dislike the most. So tell us a little bit about your books, anyway.
Well, I have 4 books that are out with Bear and Company, and the first one is called The Pleiadian Workbook, Awakening Your Divine Ka. And Ka is an ancient Egyptian word that means the divine double of the physical body that starts to become awakened when you move into Christ consciousness or into mastery. So the first book is about the steps to start in that direction. The second book was called Pleiadian Perspectives on Human Evolution, and it was written about when there was life on Venus, Mars, Maldek, before the Earth started becoming populated with humans, and what happened on those planets to start the karmic paths here on the Earth into existence. And it also has a beautiful story in it about Mother Mary awakening during Lemuria, and how her awakening came about and how she chose to live more lifetimes after that.
In order to help the Earth. Yes,
Yes.
I just finished reading that, and I enjoyed it so much. I encourage anybody who wants a little more insight into things to read that.
And the third book is the Pleiadian Tantric Workbook, Awakening Your Divine Ba. And Ba is another ancient Egyptian word that means the soul. And it's about awakening your soul and using tantric sexuality in order to do that, because we're meant to awaken all of our chakras, including our lower and including the sexual energy. And this is about how to start raising that frequency and transcending the male-female games that go on this planet that are not about true relationship. And so that's a really wonderful book also. And then the final book is Affinity, Reclaiming the Divine Flow of Creation. And that has many channelings from different beings, Saint Germain, Jesus, Mother Mary, Archangel Ra, and others, and many channelings in it. And the last chapter in that book is a really great one about how to work with the guides to help with the cellular transformation for clearing the old mutations from our cellular bodies.
Oh, that's great. I know a lot of people are interested in that, and I know a number of people don't know what you're talking about, but somewhere in between we hope we're teaching some things. So Affinity is actually about working on the cellular level to clear. I know we can
it's about
store
lots
many
of things. It's not just about the cellular. It's also about clearing issues of attachment, about healing your relationship with mother and father and bringing in spiritual mother and father.
Fantastic.
And it's about the cities of light and what that is and what it means. It's about many different things, but the cellular teaching is really good because it talks about how you can call in the guides to help you with it. But unless you're able to claim a certain level of consciousness in yourself, they can't do anything for you on that level.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic.
And the cellular mutation comes from even things like the chemicals in the foods, preservatives, additives, hormones that are in the meats and the chicken and things that people eat. All those things create mutation, but we also have cellular mutation that's created by the karmas that we carry from our lifetimes, and the things that are negative that we believe in.
Yes, so any kind of negativity gets stored cellularly too.
Yes, yes.
And when one's ready, that sounds like a terrific book to help you clear it.
Yes.
I want to make sure we have time. You're also the founder of the Dolphin Star Temple Mystery School.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and what the benefits are for those who study there?
The Dolphin Star Temple Mystery School it doesn't mean mystery school as in secretive or some hierarchical thing. Mystery school implies that when you enter into the mystery school, you have to learn one thing before you can learn the next, because evolution is a very sequential process. So
it's a spiritual evolution.
Yes, and as that spiritual revolution takes place, you're not given something until you're ready for it. And that's why the mystery, because things are held back until you've completed the things before it that lead up to it. And Dolphin Star Temple is mixture of the ancient mystery school systems of Lemuria, Atlantis, and Egypt and Greece. And there's even some teachings that have come in from the Mayan culture and the Inca and other things. But it's basically a contemporized version of these ancient mystery school systems that we can use today, because it's time for the earth to awaken to Christ consciousness. So the teachings and the system that I've brought through are to help people move in that direction, and teaching what's needed for us to get there. And then when we are there, how the awakening of 144,000 people to Christ consciousness on earth is going to create a wave of ascension and enlightenment that goes through everyone on the planet. And at that point, they'll have a choice on whether they want to step onto the spiritual path or not.
Mm-hmm. Terrific. Now, you have regular monthly meetings. I'd like people to know when your gathering is so that anyone who's watching can participate.
Well, our monthly gatherings are at 310 Ivy Street in Mount Shasta, and they start at 7 p.m. And I never plan ahead. I just let it come through that night, whatever comes through for the group that I'm leading.
Right.
And so who shows up sort of determines what comes through on a group level.
Right. So it's on the first Sunday?
The first Sunday
month.
of each month at 7 p.m.
Terrific. Yeah, I've been several times, and it's always awesome and very spiritually healing and uplifting. So thank you for offering that service.
You're welcome.
Let's see, what have we talked about here? Oh yes, you often share information at the time of the equinoxes and the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And how would you describe where we are as a planet right now, and what we need to be doing in terms of the energies around the seasonal change that we just completed the spring equinox?
Well, let me just first of all define what I mean by working with the equinoxes and solstices, and then I'll answer your question. Basically, in this long cycle, which is like an elliptical cycle of our Earth going around the sun, we have these times that are specifically aligned within our galaxy in a way that we receive certain frequencies and certain energies. And the higher dimensional beings of light know how to use those special time frames to help us get to a new place in our evolution. There were times in the past when there were past life karmas that had been hidden from us that were awakened and caused what we think of as some of the disasters. But sometimes you need to play those things out again so you can grow and learn from it and get it right this time. Well, right now we're in a very special time on the planet when the energies that are coming through at the equinoxes and solstices are for helping us in this plan of returning to oneness and finding unity and diversity on the earth. And for instance, at this spring equinox, it was a time when we were meant to really be ready to align with whatever our highest divine plan is for this lifetime and for the planet. And to have a commitment to that is so solid that we know that we're not putting anything off that we're supposed to be doing. And like a couple of years ago at the spring equinox, there was a divine energy that was coming through from the higher dimensional beings that had to do with what I was talking about earlier, learning to love every part of yourself, and also learning to live where you love, learning to work where you love, learning to be with people that are easy for you to love. And basically the teaching in that was that our lives need to be where we're loving everything and everyone around us all the time. And if we're not, to recognize we're contributing to the separation and even to war.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would like to blame war on somebody else. It's teaching that came from Thich Nhat Hanh, well, probably not exclusively with Thich Nhat Hanh, but he really put it forward quite a bit, that we really have to be responsible for negativity. It appears outside of ourselves, but we carry at least the seed of it inside ourselves.
Absolutely.
We have to really take responsibility so that we're part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem.
Yes. And even if we're not acting it out, we have the potential for that inside. And that's a part of what helps us learn to have more compassion for others, when we recognize that when someone's doing something terrible, there but for the grace of God go I.
Yes, and maybe you did.
Yes, I'm sure I have in other lifetimes.
Yes, exactly.
But also in that vein, I'll just say that with this bringing through of the things for the equinoxes and solstices, the guides can bring through a certain amount, but they need people on the earth who are at a point in their own evolution where they're anchoring that ability. For instance, when it was the time to love every part of yourself, they had been giving me those teachings for a while, and I'd been teaching my students for a while, even before that spring equinox, because when the equinox came, they needed a certain number of people on the earth already anchoring that ability in order to give the divine compensation of that energy to the people on earth who had not done it yet. So we work hand in hand with the higher dimensional guides, and they need us as much as we need them.
Yes, it's sometimes easy to forget that we're part of a team. We're not just the peons in the process.
Yes.
We're going to move to our mountain moment now, and you're going to be leading us on a guided visualization. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And then the pictures will be up in a moment. We're going to be doing sunrise, sunset pictures that are mostly of the mountain. But go ahead and tell us where you're going to be taking us.
Okay. Well, when you look at Mount Shasta, there are two peaks, and the shorter peak is Mount Shastina. And when you see Mount Shastina, just inside the upper peak, there's a place that I call the Intergalactic Federation Meeting Room. And the Intergalactic Federation is a group of beings from all over the universe who are working toward bringing the divine plan for the earth and its people into place. And as they're doing this, Mount Shasta is one of what we call the earth's chakras. And it's a chakra of the earth that is above the head. So we are the first place on earth that receives the divine energies when they're coming through for the rest of the planet. So I would like us to just close our eyes now and just get an image in your mind's eye of Mount Shasta. And the smaller peak of Mount Shasta is Mount Shastina. Now, I would like you to send an infinity symbol from your third eye in the center of your forehead and from your heart into the top of Mount Shastina. And as you're creating these infinity symbols from your heart and third eye into Shastina, I want you to hold the intention and just silently say to yourself, I am ready to connect now to the Intergalactic Federation of Light. I am ready to connect now to the Intergalactic Federation of Light. And then just start breathing and receiving energy from the Intergalactic Federation into your heart and into your third eye, because the energy in the infinity symbol is moving constantly. And aligning with that movement, you can draw your energy from them into your heart and third eye, and also send your energy out to them. So just take a moment of silence to align that way. Just take a deep breath to help you receive the energies more easily. And now I want you to just ask the Intergalactic Federation for whatever you feel is most needed on the earth and in your life at this time. And tell them, I am a human who is aware that war is not appropriate for human beings. And I'm asking you to help the human race come to a completion and end war and bring peace on earth. And then just think of any other requests that you have of the Intergalactic Federation to assist you personally and the Earth. And just ask for whatever you want to ask for at this time.
Thank you. There's so many things to ask for at this time. But it's wonderful to know that there's God working through so many levels of creation to give us assistance right now.
The amount of help that's available to us is just amazing. The number of angels, the number of Elohim and ascended masters, and they are right there ready to be with us at every moment that we want to connect with them.
Yes, and I'd like to remind people as often as possible that the angels have to be asked in order to give assistance.
Yes, they do.
The forces of darkness don't have to be asked because they'll do whatever they want, but everybody else follows the rules.
Yes.
And we've seen enormous numbers of people more interested in angels and having angelic experiences in the last number of years. So it's wonderful. Because there's so many changes happening on Earth right now, and we're seeing transformation on all levels, it's hard to say what's happening with the economy other than it's not in a good shape right now, but whether it will go back to being what it was, only slightly different, or whether we will be transforming it completely, we certainly need prayers on as we move through these changes. We just have a few minutes left, but perhaps you could say something about, maybe something about how people might cope a little better with some of the changes in their lives, things they have to let go of.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I think these changes are part of the divine plan. Because the systems that have been in place on the earth for a very long time and our governments have been very corrupt. And in the coming to completion with these systems, we have to do away with some of the old way it's been and bring new ones into place. So the best advice that I can give for people is in your daily lives, do your meditations. Connect with your own higher self, that part of you that has always stayed in oneness. And just really trust that there is a divine plan that's working.
Thank you so much. And we're going to say goodbye, and thank you all for joining us, and thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom. We're going to be playing some of your music now, piece that I particularly liked, as we close the show. And I think that's the best advice we can always give, is to remember to pray.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
In the beginning, when God said I am, creation began with the heart's divine plan. And within the creation